Going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Cheeto, and this is a new series I will be making called, well, it's not necessarily called anything. It's more so where I go into firing range and I describe the pros and cons of a weapon. Today we're going to be starting with the Havoc. Now, as some of you may know, the Havoc is a energy assault rifle, and the good thing about energy weapons is that they have very little bullet drop and a pretty quick travel time. So, the pros and cons of the Havoc. Well, let's start off with the pros. The pros of the Havoc is it has a pretty good fire rate. Like, the fire rate's pretty good on it. So is the damage. Here, look. The fire and the damage is pretty good. The overall damage output, the highest DPS the Havoc can output is 648, so it's not really like a bad gun. But then again, I do have a purple magazine. Not a purple, a gold magazine. The Havoc can be enhanced and made even better if you put on the turbocharger. The turbocharger attachment. Hop up, that's what it's called. And what the turbocharger basically does is the Havoc, similar to another energy gun that I'll describe later in the series, has a mechanic where in order to fire the first shot, you must first charge it up. See how I'm pulling down, listen. Pulling down the trigger and it's charging up. What the turbocharger basically does is it takes the, what would you call it? Basically, it makes it to where the Havoc doesn't have to spool up before firing. So it goes from this to this. Now, the pros of the Havoc are obviously the damage and the fact that it's an energy weapon. In my opinion, energy weapons are pretty strong right now. Like, I don't think any energy weapon is quote-unquote bad at the moment. The L-Star is pretty good. The Havoc, I mean, it's good, but it's somewhat of an underused gun. The Devotion is good, and the Volt is good. Before I get any further into the video, I want to say, though, I'm going to be saying, like, the pros and cons, basically, are going to be based off of my playstyle. Now, surely, obviously, my playstyle is not going to be similar to a person watching this video, because I'm more of a hybrid style player, in the sense that I will push into any fight. I will never say no to pushing into a fight, but like if I know that pushing into this fight I'm at a disadvantage, I'll also stick back and say I have like a hemlock, for example. I'll stick back with my hemlock. And I'll do this in range a decent bit, because I made Gibraltar in range, but I'll stick back with my hemlock, and I'll try to initiate the fight by first getting a knock. Once I get the knock, and I know that I'm no longer at a disadvantage, like say it's a 2v3, once me or my teammate gets the knock, and I know that I'm no longer at a disadvantage, I'll gladly push in. I'll full send, and I'll do whatever I can. Then, as I said, the analysis that I'm going to be making on the pros and cons of the Havoc, and the rest of the weapons on available in Apex Legends at the moment, are going to be based off of my more of a hybrid playstyle. Like, if you're a hyper aggressive player, the Havoc can be very good for barrel stuffing someone, but the main thing is actually no, that's in the cons. Actually, I'm gonna wait till I get to the cons for that. The pros of the Havoc are obviously it has a quick fire rate. It does, I think, what, 18 damage per shot? Yeah, 18 damage per shot. I'm pretty sure to a low-profile legend, it'll do, like, 20, I think? 20 damage per shot? And to a fortified legend, it does, like, 15 to 16. Somewhere around there. And that's obviously one of the pros. The high fire rate, the damage, and the recoil. Now, like, I know what you might be thinking, the recoil, how is the recoil a pro? the recoil is most of the time pretty uncontrollable. Well, as I said, I'm basing this off of my aggressive playstyle. My aggressive and somewhat passive playstyle. And obviously, if I'm going to pick up a Havoc, I wouldn't be passive. I pick up a Havoc because I plan on being aggressive. Same with, say, for example, the L-Star. Or another example, the Devotion. If you pick up a Devotion, you pick up a Devotion because you plan on being aggressive and barrel stuffing someone. So, for an aggressive player's playstyle, the Havoc is a pretty good weapon. The Havoc has a lot of things going for it. Damage and recoil being one, as I already stated prior. Sorry for repeating myself. And the damage is pretty good. Now, those are kind of the pros of the weapon. The damage, the recoil, the fire rate, and obviously the turbocharger being a big one. And for an aggressive playstyle, all you need is really just high damage, high fire rate, and semi-low recoil. Now here's the cons of the weapon. Now I remember saying that one of the pros for an aggressive playstyle is the recoil. But like, say you pick up a Havoc, and here, let me see. I'm gonna try my best to beam with the Havoc, because it's not my best weapon, but I'll give it a shot. Say you pick up a Havoc, right? And this is, let me see.
What do you think is over here?
41 meters. This is around the same amount of meters that any mid-range fight would be with a Havoc. The thing about the Havoc is the recoil can be a detriment, a severe detriment, or it can really not affect you that much. If you're playing at a range, the recoil is a massive detriment, due to the sole fact that a few seasons ago when the Havoc was nerfed, they gave it actual horizontal recoil. In the sense that, here, I can explain this better if I shoot the ball.
Go faster.
The Havoc's recoil isn't only vertical. So if you're trying to beam at a range, not only would you have to counter for the vertical, but you'd also have to do this. I'm not going to control the recoil here. Yeah, see? It goes up, and then to the right, and then it veers off hard right, then it goes back up, then it goes up to the left. So unless you memorize that recoil pattern perfectly, the only way you're going to really be able to use this gun is barrel stuffing. Because here's my best attempt, here's an attempt at shooting a dummy from, like, okay, here, I'll give myself somewhat of a easier time. Let me see, 27 meters. Here's my attempt of shooting a dummy at, I'll go 30 meters. That's 30 meters. Okay, now that aim was pretty bad. But, like, you get the gist. You get what I'm trying to do. Here's... try it on this dummy as well.
Amigos, let's go here.
28 meters, 30. There we go, 30. That was me trying damn near my best to control this gun's recoil. Like, the vertical recoil for the Havoc isn't necessarily the con of it. It's the horizontal recoil. Like, unless you're barrel stuffing with this weapon, you won't really be able to, like, use it, quote-unquote, effectively. Let me take this side off. So, that's one con. Another con can be, sometimes, energy ammo. And what I mean by energy ammo is, in the sense that, in an actual game, energy ammo isn't going to be so easy to find. Energy ammo isn't going to be as easy to find, such as, hey, just walk up to where the energy weapons are and pick up 120 energy ammo. It's not going to be that easy. Most of the time I'll play a game where, say I'm using a Volt, for example, and I'll be forced to drop my Volt due to the sole fact that I can't find any energy ammo. Another con about the Havoc would be, let me think about it. I don't really think there's any other, here's the big one. The Havoc is, in my opinion, marginally worse without the turbocharger. Because, say for example, you pull up on a guy and you have a Havoc and he has a Volt. If he's a good player, in the time it takes your Havoc to spool up, he would have probably already cracked your armor if it's like a close. If it's a close range enclosed 1v1 and say like a building, say you're trying to play a hallway, or maybe it's like on top of those buildings in containment on Kings Canyon, like those big old buildings on containment on top of that. If you're facing a good player and it's on even ground, the time it takes you to spool up the Havoc, believe it or not, that's a really long time. Like maybe 1.5 to 2 seconds it takes you to spool up the Havoc. I don't even think it's that. Maybe it's 1 second at max. But then the time it takes you to spool up the Havoc, if it's a good player, he would have already cracked, if not almost cracked, your armor. So if you go into a gunfight with a Havoc, and you're versing like here, I'll go pick up a 9 for example. The 9 has a high fire rate, and it's a pretty used weapon. So, let me see. That's how long it takes you. Okay, I held down the trigger for like a second. 1. In 1 second, or at least as best as I could time 1 second in my head, I hit that dummy for 72. Here. 1. Once again, hit that dummy for 55. So you'd be losing around 30 to 70 health in the time it would take you to spool up your Havoc. That is why most people, and some of my friends included, will refuse to run the Havoc or the Devotion unless they have a turbocharger, because the turbocharger changes up the flow of this weapon entirely. Say you're in the same situation, then you roll up on the same person and he has a Volt or an R9. And the person, you and him, see each other at the exact same time, and you both get your first shot off at the exact same time. If he has a Volt, it's going to be a very close fight. Because, let me see, how much does the Volt deal? The Volt deals 15 body, with practically the same, if not more, fire rate. The Havoc deals 18 body. And say, for example, you're 1v1ing a person who has a Volt and you have a Havoc, it's going to be a really close fight. You have a little bit more of a chance, in my opinion, at beating an R9 with a Havoc than you do a Volt. Just because, like, yeah, the R9's fire rate is really high. But then again, you also gotta think about the fact that the gun does, like, what, 9 damage to normal and legends, non-fortified, non-low profile. I think it does, if I'm not mistaken, 11 to low profile legends, and like 8 or 7 to fortified legends. So like, if you're versing, in my opinion, if you're versing an R9, you're more than likely to win with a Havoc, just because due to the fact that the R9's fire rate is like 10 times faster than the Havoc, the R9 is going to run out of bullets really quickly, and unless it's a really good player who's really like good at tracking and really good at tracing their opponent, they're gonna have a really hard time. But with the Havoc, all you have to do is just walk up to them and just, like, do that. So, like, in conclusion, I tried to do this as best I could, so please don't be too harsh. If anybody watches this, don't be too harsh with judging. But in conclusion, the Havoc's pros are the damage. From the eyes of an aggressive player, the Havoc's pros are the damage, the recoil if you're barrel stuffing, and the fire rate. And obviously the turbocharger helps a lot with that. The Havoc's cons are, if you don't have a turbocharger, it turns substantially into a worse gun. If you're trying to take a ranged fight with a Havoc, it's going to be really, really bad. And if you're... What else is it that I said? Oh, if you roll up on a person, if you don't have a turbocharger and you roll up on a person and you have to spool it up in front of them, you're obviously going to get fried, so that's another con. Turbocharger is obviously a really, really, really big con for the Havoc. And as I said, the pros are the recoil for an aggressive player who likes to barrel stuff, the recoil, the damage, and the fire rate. If you enjoyed this video, I really do hope you enjoyed this video. And if you enjoyed it, please, it'd be very much appreciated if you considered dropping a like and a sub. I will continue to make more videos where I describe the pros and cons of weapons to the best of my ability, because I'm pretty bad at describing, but I'll try my best. And hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.